Genesis 1, chapter 1, verse 1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness covered the surface of the watery depths, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the surface of the waters. Then God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. God saw that the light was good, and God separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. There was an evening and there was a morning one day. Then God said, "Let there be an expanse between the waters, separating the water from water." So God made the expanse and separated the water under the expanse from the water above the expanse, and it was so. So God called the expanse sky. Evening came and the morning and the second day. Then God said, "Let the water under the sky be gathered into one place, and let the dry land appear," and it was so. God called the land earth, and the gathering of the water he called seas. And God saw that it was good. Then God said, "Let the earth produce vegetation, seed-bearing plants, and fruit trees on the earth, bearing fruit with seed according to their kinds." And it was so. The earth produced vegetation, seed-bearing plants according to their kinds, and trees bearing fruit with seed according to their kinds. And God saw that it was good. Evening came, then morning, the third day. Then God said, "Let there be lights and expanses to the skies, and separate the day from the night, and they will serve as signs for seasons and days and years, and they will be lights in the expanse of the sky to provide light on earth." And it was so. God made the two great lights, the greater the light to rule over the day, and the lesser their light to rule over the night, as well as the stars. God placed them in the expanse of the sky to provide light on the earth, to rule the day and the night, and to separate the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good. Evening came, and then morning, and the fourth day. God then said, "Let the water swarm with living creatures, and let the birds fly above the earth across the expanse of the sky." So God created the large sea creatures in the evening, and every living creature that moves and swarms in the water according to their kinds. He also created every winged creature according to its kind, and God saw that it was good. God blessed them, "Be fruitful, multiply, and fill the waters of the seas, and let the birds multiply on the earth." Evening came, and in the morning of the fifth day. Then God said, "Let the earth produce living creatures according to their kinds, their livestock, and the creatures that crawl in the wildlife of the earth according to their kinds." And it was so. God made the wildlife of the earth according to their kinds, and the livestock according to their kinds, and all the creatures that crawl on the ground according to their kinds. And then God saw that it was good. Then God said, "Let us make man in our image, and according to the likeness. Then it will rule the fish. They will rule the fish of the sea, the birds of the sky, and the livestock of the whole earth, and the creatures that crawl on the earth." So God created man in his own image. He created him in the image of God. He created them male and female. God blessed them, and God said to them, "Be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth, subdue it, rule the fish of the sea, the birds of the sky, and every creature that crawls on earth." God also said, "Look, I have given you every seed-bearing plant on the surface of the entire earth, and every tree whose fruit contains seeds. This will be food for you, and all the wildlife of the earth, and every bird of the sky, and for every creature that crawls on the earth, everything that having the breath of life in it, I have given every plant for food." And it was so. God saw all that he had made, and it was very good indeed. Evening came, then morning, the sixth day. Genesis chapter 2. So the heavens and the earth and everything in them were completed on the seventh day, that God had completed his work he had done, and rested on the seventh day. And all his work that he had done, God blessed the seventh day and declared it holy. For on it he rested from all his work from creation. These are the records of the heavens and the earth concerning their creation at the time that the Lord God made the heavens and the earth. No shrub of the field had yet grown on the land, no plant of the field had yet sprouted, for the Lord God had not made it rain on the land, and there was no man to work the ground. But mist would come up from the earth and water from the ground, and then the Lord formed the man out of the dust from the ground, and breathed life into his nostrils, and the man became a living being. The Lord planted in the Garden of Eden in the east, and then he was placed there, and he had formed The Lord caused to grow out of the ground every tree and pleasing in appearance and good for food, including the tree of life. In the middle of the garden as well, the tree of knowledge of good and evil. The river went out from Eden and the water to the water for the water of the garden. From there it divided and became a source of 4 rivers. The name of the first was Pishon, which flows to the entire land of Havilah. There, where there is gold that from that land is pure. Bdellium and onyx are also there. The name of the second river is Gihon, which flows through the entire land of Cush. The name of the third river is Tigris, which runs east of the Assyria, and the fourth river is Euphrates. The Lord took the man and placed him in the Garden of Eden and work and watch over it. Then the Lord commanded man, if you are free to eat from any tree of the garden, you must not eat from the tree of the knowledge of the good and evil. You will eat from it, and you will certainly die. Then the Lord said, it is not good for man to be alone, and I will make a helper corresponding to him. And the Lord God formed out of the ground every animal and every bird of the sky, and brought each to the man to see which he would call it. And whatever the man called a living creature, that was its name. The man gave names to all the livestock, the birds of the sky, and to every wild animal. But for the man no helper was found corresponding to him. So the Lord caused a deep sleep to come over him, and he slept. God took one of his ribs and closed the flesh at that place. And then the Lord God made the rib, and he had taken from this man to the woman and brought her to the man. And the man said, this one at last is bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh. This one will be called woman. And she was taken from the man. This is why a man leaves his father and mother and bonds with his wife, and they become one in flesh. Both the man and his wife were naked, yet felt no shame. Genesis chapter 5. This is the document containing the family records of Adam. On that day that God created man, he made himself in the likeness of God. He created them male and female, and they were created, and he blessed them, called them mankind. Adam was 130 years old when he fathered a son in his likeness, according to his image, and named him Seth. Adam lived 800 years after he fathered Seth, and he fathered other sons and daughters, so Adam's life lasted 930 years, and then he died. Seth was 105 years old when he fathered Enosh. Seth lived 807 years after he fathered Enosh, and he fathered other sons and daughters, so Seth's life lasted 912 years, then he died. Enosh was 90 years old when he fathered Kenan. Enosh lived 815 years after he fathered Kenan, and he fathered sons and daughters, so Enosh's life lasted 905 years, and he died. Kenan was 70 years old when he had fathered Mahalalel. Kenan lived 840 years after he fathered Mahalalel, and he fathered other sons and daughters. Kenan's life lasted 910 years, then he died. Mahalalel was 65 years old when he fathered Jared. Mahalalel lived 830 years after he fathered Jared, and he fathered sons and daughters, so Mahalalel's life lasted 895 years, then he died. Jared was 162 years old when he fathered Enoch. Jared lived for 800 years, and he fathered Enoch, and he fathered other sons and daughters, so Jared's life lasted 962 years, then he died. Enoch was 65 years old when he fathered Methuselah, and after he fathered Methuselah, Enoch walked with God 300 years and fathered other sons and daughters, so Enoch's life lasted 365 years. Enoch walked with God. Then he was not there because God took him. Methuselah was 187 years old when he fathered Lamech. Methuselah lived 782 years after he fathered Lamech, and he fathered sons and daughters. So Methuselah's life lasted 969 years, then he died. Lamech was 182 years old when he fathered a son. He named him Noah, saying, this one will bring us relief from the agonizing labor of our hands caused by the ground. The Lord is cursed. Lamech lived 595 years after he fathered Noah. He fathered other sons and daughters, so Lamech's life lasted 777 years, and he died. Noah was 500 years old when he fathered Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Genesis chapter 6. Make sure I'm still recording here. Yep, okay, cool. When mankind began to multiply on the earth, and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of mankind were beautiful, and they took any they chose as wives for themselves. And the Lord said, My spirit will not remain with mankind forever, because they are corrupt. The days will be 120 years in the film were on the earth, both in days and afterwards. The sons of God came together, and the daughters of mankind and bore children with them, and they were powerful men of old and famous men. And the Lord saw that the human wickedness was widespread on the earth, and that every inclination of the human mind was nothing but evil all the time. The Lord regretted that he had made man on the earth, and was deeply grieved. Then the Lord said, I will wipe away mankind, who I created off the face of the earth, together with the animals and creatures that crawl, and the birds in the sky, for I regret that I made them. Noah, however, found favor with the Lord. These are the family records. Noah was a righteous man, blameless among his contemporaries. Noah walked with God, and Noah fathered 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And now the earth was corrupt in God's sight, and the earth was filled with wickedness. God saw how corrupt the earth was, for every creature had corrupted its way on the earth. Then God said to Noah, I have decided to end to every creature, for the earth is filled with wickedness because of them. Therefore, I'm going to destroy them along with the earth. Make yourself an ark of gopher wood. Make rooms in the ark and cover pitch inside the outside. This is how you are to make it. An ark will be 450 feet long, 75 feet wide, and 45 feet high. You're making a roof. Finish the sides of the ark. Within 18 inches of the roof, you are to put a door in the side of the ark, make it lower, middle, and upper decks. Understand that I am bringing a flood waters on the earth, and destroy every creature under heaven. Destroy every creature under heaven with the breath of life in it. Everything on the earth will perish, but I will establish my covenant with you, and you will enter my ark with your sons, your wife, and your sons' wives, and you are also to bring into the ark 2 of the living creatures, male and female, to keep them alive with you. 2 of everything, from the birds according to their kinds, from the livestock according to their kinds, from the animals that crawl on the ground into their kinds, will come so that you can keep them alive. Take with you every kind of food that is eaten, gather it as food for you and them. And Noah did this. He did everything that God commanded him. Genesis chapter 7. And the Lord said to Noah, Enter the ark, and you and all your household, for I have seen that you alone are righteous before me in this generation. You are to take with you the 7 pairs of a male and female, and all the clean animals, and the 2 animals that are not clean, a male and female, and 7 pairs and 7 pairs male and female of the birds of the sky, in order to keep offspring alive throughout the earth. 7 days from now on I will make it rain on the earth for 40 days and 40 nights, and living in every living thing I have made I will wipe off the face of the earth. And Noah did everything that the Lord commanded him. Noah was 600 years old when the flood came and water covered the earth. So Noah and his sons and his wife and his sons' wives entered the ark because of the flood waters, from the animals that are clean and every animal that are not clean, and the birds of every creature that crawls on the ground. 2 of each, male and female, came to Noah and entered the ark, just as God has commanded him. 7 days later, the flood waters came on the earth. In 600th year of Noah's life, in the 2nd month, on the 17th day of the month on that day. The sources of the vast watery depths of the burst open, and the floodgates of the sky were open, and the rain fell on the earth for 40 days and 40 nights. And on that same day, Noah and his 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, entered the ark along with Noah's wife and his 3 sons. They entered in all of the wildlife according to their kinds, and the wild stock according to all their kinds, and the creatures that crawl on the earth according to every kind, flying creature, all the birds, and every winged creature according to their kinds. To every creature had to breathe life came to Noah and entered the ark. Those that entered, male and female, every creature just entered as God commanded. And the Lord shut him in. Flood continued for 40 days on the earth. The water increased and lifted up the ark that it rose above the earth. The water surged and increased greatly. The earth and the ark floated on the surface of the water. And then the water surged even higher on the earth, and the high mountains all under all the sky were covered. The mountains were covered as the water surged more than 20 feet. Each creature perished, those that crawl on the earth, birds, wild livestock, wildlife, and those that swarm the earth, as well as all mankind. Everything with the breath of the Spirit on its nostrils, everything on the dry land died. And he wiped out every living thing that was on the face of the earth, and every from mankind to the livestock of the creatures that crawled, the birds of the sky that were wiped off the earth. Only Noah was left, and those that were with him. And the water surged on the earth for 150 days. God remembered Noah, as well as the wildlife and all the livestock that were with him in the ark. God caused a wind to pass over the earth, and the water began to subside. The sources of the watery depths and floodgates of the sky were closed, and the rain from the sky stopped. The water steadily receded from the earth, and by the end of the 150 days, the water had decreased significantly. The ark came to rest in the 7th month of the 17th day of the month on the mountains of Ararat. The water continued to recede until the 10th month, and in the 10th month, the first day of the month, the tops of the mountains were visible. After the 40 days, Noah opened the window of the ark that he had made, and he sent out a raven, and it came back and forth, and the water dried up from the earth. Then he sent out a dove to see whether the water on the earth's surface had gone down, but the dove found no resting place for its foot. It returned to him in the ark because the water had covered the surface of the whole earth. He reached out and brought it to the ark to himself, and then so Noah waited 7 more days and sent out the dove from the ark again. And the dove came to him at the evening. There was plucked an olive leaf at its beak, so Noah knew that the water on the earth's surface had gone down. But after he had waited another 7 days, he sent out the dove, and it did not return to him again. In the 601st year, in the 1st month, on the 1st day of the month, the water had covered the earth, was dried up. Then Noah removed the ark's cover and saw that the surface of the ground was drying. At the 27th day of the 2nd month, the earth was dry. Then God spoke to Noah, "Come out of the ark, you and your wife and your sons wives, and you bring out all the living creatures that are with you, birds, livestock, and those that crawl on the earth, and they will spread all over the earth and be fruitful and multiply the earth." So Noah, along with his sons and his wife and his wives, came out. All of the animals and living creatures that crawl out of the flying creatures, and all the flying creatures, everything that moves on the earth came out of the ark by their families. And Noah built an altar of the Lord. He took some of every kind of animal, I like that, and offered burnt offerings on the altar. When the Lord smelled the pleasing aroma, he said to himself, "I will never curse the ground again because of human beings. Even the inclination of the human heart is evil from onward, and I'll never again strike down every living thing as I have done. As long as the earth endures," as long as the earth endures, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night will not cease. Genesis chapter 9. God blessed Noah and his sons and said to them, "Be fruitful and multiply the earth. The fear and the terror of you will be in every living creature on you. Of you will be in every living creature on the earth, and every bird of the sky, and every creature that crawls on the earth, every bird of the sky, and every creature that crawls on the ground, and all the fish of the sea. They are placed under your authority. Every creature that lives and moves will be food for you. As I gave you the green plants, I have given you everything. However, you must not eat with its life's blood in it, and I will require a penalty for your lifeblood. I will require from any animal and from any human. If someone murders a fellow human, I will require that person's life. Whoever sheds human blood, by humans his blood will be shed. By God made humans in his image. Oh, I like that. You be fruitful and multiply and spread it over the earth and multiply on it. And God said to Noah and his sons with him, understand that I am establishing my covenant with you and your descendants after you, with every living creature that is with you, birds, livestock, and wildlife, and all the animals that are with you. All the animals of the earth came out of the ark, and I will establish my covenant with you that it will never be wiped out of the flood waters again. I establish my covenant with you that never again will every creature be wiped out by flood waters. There will never be a flood to destroy the earth. There will never again be a flood to destroy the earth. And God said, this is the sign of the covenant I am making between me and you and every living creature, and you a covenant for all your future generations. I have placed my bow in the clouds, and it will be a sign. Covenant in the earth. I form clouds over the earth, and the bow appears in the clouds. Remember my covenant between you and me, and every living creature again. I will never. And will never again become a flood to destroy every living creature. The bow being the clouds, as I look at it, remember the permanent covenant between God and all the living creatures in the earth. God said to Noah, this is the sign of the covenant established between me and every living creature on the earth. Noah's sons who came out of the ark were Shem and Ham and Japheth, and Ham was the father of Canaan. These three were Noah's sons, and from them the whole earth was populated. Noah, as a man of the soil, began planting by a vineyard. He drank some of the wine and became drunk and uncovered himself inside his tent. Ham, the father of Canaan, saw his father naked and told his two brothers outside. Then Shem and Japheth took a cloth and placed it over both their shoulders. Walking backwards, they covered their father's nakedness. Their faces were turned away, and then they did not see their father naked. When Noah awoke from his drinking and learned that his youngest son had done to him, he said, Canaan is cursed. He'll be the lowest of slaves to his brothers. He also said, blessed is the Lord God of Shem. Let Canaan be Shem's slave. Let God expand Japheth. Let Japheth dwell in the tents of Shem. Let Canaan be Shem's slave. Now Noah lived 350 years after the flood. So Noah's life lasted 950 years. Then he died. Genesis chapter 10. These are the family records of Noah's sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. They also had sons after the flood. Japheth's son, Gomer, Magog, Madai, Javan, Tubal, Meshech, Tiras. Gomer's son, Ashkenaz, Riphath, Togarmah, and Javan's son, Elisha, Tarshish, Kittim, and Dodanim. From these descendants, the peoples of the coasts and the islands spread out into their lands according to their clans and their nations, and each with its own language. Ham's son, Cush, Mizraim, Put, Canaan. Cush's sons, Seba, Havilah, Sebta, Rama, and Sebteka, and Rama's sons, Sheba and Dedan. Cush fathered Nimrod, who began to be powerful in the land. He was a powerful hunter in the sight of the Lord. That is why it is said, like Nimrod, a powerful hunter in the sight of the Lord. His kingdom started with Babylon, Erech, Akkad, Calneh, the land of Shimnar. From that land he went to Assyria, and he built Nineveh, Bothir, Kalal, and Rezin, between Nineveh and the great city of Kalal. Mizraim fathered the people of Lud, Anam, Lahab, Naphtu, Pathras, Kasla. The Philistines came from, in parentheses, the Philistines came from them, and Caphtar. Canaan fathered Sidon, his firstborn, and Heth, well as Jebusites, the Amorites, and the Girgashites, the Hivites, the Archites, the Sinites, the Arabites, the Zemanites, the Hamathites. Afterwards, the Canaanite clans scattered. The Canaanite border went from Sidon, going towards Gerar as far as Gaza, going towards Sodom and Gomorrah, Admah, Zebolim, as far as Lasha. These are Ham's sons by their clans according to the languages in the land of the nation. And Shem, Japheth's older brother, also had sons. Shem was the father of all the sons of Eber. Shem's sons were Elim, Ashur, Arpachshad, Lud, and Aram. Aram's sons were Uz, Hul, Yether, and Mash. Arpachshad's father Shelah, and the father and Shelah fathered Eber. Eber had two sons. One was named Peleg. During the days of the earth was divided, his brother was named Joktan, and Joktan fathered Almadad, Shelef, and Hazamaveth, Jerah, Hadaram, Uzal, Dikla, Obal, Abamel, Sheba, Ophir, Havilah, and Jobab. All these were Joktan's sons. Their settlements extended from Mesha to Sephar to the eastern hill country. The eastern hill country, these are Shem's sons by their clans, according to their languages in the lands of their nations. These are the clans of Noah's sons, according to their family records. The nations are the earth spread out after the flood. Genesis chapter 11. The old earth had the same language and the same vocabulary as the people migrated from the east. They found that the valley in the land of Shinar had settled there. They said to each other, "Come, let's make even fired bricks." They used brick for stone and asphalt for mortar. And they said, "Come, let's build ourselves a city and a tower on top of it in the sky. Let's make a name for ourselves, otherwise we will be scattered throughout the earth." And the Lord came down to look over the city and the tower that the humans were building. The Lord said, "If they have begun to do this as one people, all having the same language, and they have to plan to do, will be impossible for them. Come, let's go down there and confuse their language so that they will not understand one another's speech." So from there, the Lord scattered them throughout the earth, and they stopped building the city. Therefore, it is called Babylon, for there the Lord confused their language of the whole earth, and there the Lord scattered them throughout the earth. These are the family records of Shem. Shem lived 100 years and fathered Arpachshad, and he lived after the flood. After he fathered Arpachshad, Shem lived 500 years and fathered the sons and daughters. Arpachshad lived 35 years and fathered Shelah. And after he fathered Shelah, Arpachshad lived 403 years and fathered the other sons and daughters. Shelah lived 30 years and fathered Eber. After he fathered Eber, Shelah lived 403 years and fathered the sons and daughters. Eber lived 34 years and fathered Peleg. And after he fathered Peleg, Eber lived 430 years and fathered the sons and daughters. Peleg lived 30 years and fathered Ru. After he fathered Ru, Peleg lived 209 years and fathered the other sons and daughters. Ru lived 32 years and fathered Shrug. After he fathered Shrug, Ru lived 207 years and fathered the other sons and daughters. Shrug lived 30 years and fathered Nahor. And after he fathered Nahor, Shrug lived 200 years and fathered the sons and daughters. Nahor lived 29 years and fathered Terah. After he fathered Terah, Nahor lived 119 years and fathered the other sons and daughters. Terah lived 70 years and fathered Abram, Nahor, and Haran. These are the family records of Terah. Terah fathered Abram, Nahor, and Haran fathered Lot. Haran died in his native land in Ur of the Chaldeans during his father Terah's lifetime. Abram and Nahor took wives. Abram's wife was named Sarai, and Nahor's wife was named Micah, and she was the daughter of Haran, the father of both Milcah and Iscar. Sarai was unable to conceive and she did not have a child. Terah took his son Abram and his grandson Lot, Haran's son, his daughter-in-law Sarai, his son Abram's wife, and they set out together from Ur, or of the Chaldeans, to go to the land of Canaan. But when they came to Haran, they settled there. Terah lived 205 years and died in Haran. Exodus chapter 1. They are the names of the sons of Israel who came to Egypt with Jacob.
Each came with his family: Reuben, Simeon, Levi, and Judah; Issachar, Zebulun, and Benjamin; Dan and Naphtali; Gad and Asher. The total number of Jacob's descendants was 70. Joseph already was in Egypt. Joseph and his brothers and all the generation eventually died. But the Israelites were fruitful, increased rapidly, multiplied, and became extremely numerous, so that the land was filled with them. A new king who did not know about Joseph came to power in Egypt, and he said to his people, "Look, the Israelite people are more numerous and powerful than we are. Come, let's deal shrewdly with them. Otherwise, they will multiply further, and when war breaks out, they will join our enemies, fight against us, and leave the country." So the Egyptians assigned taskmasters over the Israelites to oppress them with forced labor. They built on Pithom and Ramesses and as supply cities for Pharaoh, but the more they oppressed and the more they multiplied to spread so that the Egyptians came to dread the Israelites, they worked the Israelites ruthlessly and made their lives bitter with difficult labor and brick and mortar and all kinds of field work. They ruthlessly imposed all the work on them. The king of Egypt said to the Hebrew midwives, the first whose name was Shiphrah, and the second whose name was Puah, "When you help the Hebrew woman give birth and observe them as they deliver, if a child is a son, kill him, but if there is a daughter, she may live." The midwives, however, feared God and did not do as the Egyptian king had told them to do, and they let the boys live. So the king of Egypt summoned the midwives and asked them, "Why have you done this and let the boys live?" The midwives said to Pharaoh, "Hebrew women are not like the Egyptian women, for they are vigorous and giving birth, and the midwife can give to them." So God was good to the midwives, and the people multiplied and became very numerous. Since the midwives feared God, they gave their families. He gave them the families. Pharaoh then commanded his people, "You must throw out every son born to Hebrews in the Nile, but let every daughter live." Exodus chapter 2. Now a man from the family of Levi married a Levite woman. The woman became pregnant and gave birth to a son. When she saw that he was beautiful, she hid him for 3 months. But when she could no longer hide him, she got a papyrus basket for him and coated it with asphalt and pitch. She placed the child in it and set it among the reeds by the bank of the Nile. Then his sisters stood at a distance in order to see what would happen to him. Pharaoh's daughter went down to bathe at the Nile while her servant girl walked along the river bank. She saw a basket there, and the reeds sent her slave. On the reeds sent her slave girl, took it, opened it, and saw him, the child, and there he was, a little boy crying. She felt sorry for him and said, "This is one of the Hebrew boys." Then his sister said to the Pharaoh's daughter, "Should I go and call a Hebrew woman who is nursing to nurse the boy for you?" "Go," Pharaoh's daughter told her. So the daughter went and called the boys. And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Take this child and nurse him, for I will pay your wages." So the woman took the boy and nursed him. When the child grew older, she brought him to Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. She then named him Moses, because she said, "I drew him out of the water." Years later, after Moses had grown up, he went out to his own people and observed their forced labor. He saw an Egyptian striking a Hebrew, one of his people. Looking all around and seeing no one, he struck the Egyptian dead and hid him in the sand. The next day he went out and saw the 2 Hebrews fighting. He asked then one thing, "Why are you attacking your neighbor? Who made you a commander and judge over us?" The man replied, "Are you planning to kill me as you killed the Egyptian?" Then Moses became afraid and thought, what I did is certainly known. When Pharaoh heard about this, he tried to kill Moses. But Moses fled from Pharaoh and went to live in the land of Midian and sat down by a well. Now the priests of Midian had several daughters, and they came to draw water and fill out the troughs of their father's flock. Then some shepherds arrived and drove them away. But Moses came to their rescue and watered their flocks. When they returned to their father Reuel, he asked, "Why have you come back so quickly today?" They answered, "An Egyptian has rescued us from the shepherds. He even drew us water for us, and he watered the flocks. So where is he? He asked his daughters, why then did you leave the man behind? Invite him to eat dinner. Moses agreed to stay with the man, and he gave his daughter Zipporah to Moses in marriage. Then she gave birth to a son. Whom he named Gershom, for he said, I have been a resident alien in a foreign land. After a long time, the king of Egypt died. The Israelites groaned because of their difficult labor. They cried out, and their cry for help because of the difficult labor ascended to God. God heard their groaning, and God remembered his covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and with Jacob. God saw the Israelites, and God knew. Exodus chapter 3. Meanwhile, Moses was shepherding in a flock of his father-in-law Jethro, the priest of Midian. He led the flock to the far side of the wilderness and came to Horeb, the mountain of God, and the angel of the Lord appeared to him in a flame of fire with a bush. And as Moses looked, he saw that bush and was on fire, but it was not consumed. So Moses thought, I must go over and look at this remarkable sight. Why isn't this bush burning up? Then the Lord saw that he had been gone and over to look. God called out to him from the bush, Moses, Moses. Here I am, he answered. Do not come closer, he said. Remove the sandals from your feet, for the place where you are standing is holy ground. Then he continued, I am God, your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. Moses hid his face because he was afraid to look at God. Then the Lord said, I have observed the misery of my people in Egypt, and I have heard them crying out because of their oppressors, and I know about their sufferings, and I have come down to rescue them from the power of the Egyptians, and to bring them from that land to a good and spacious land, the land flowing with milk and honey, in the territory of the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites. Because the Israelites cry for help has come to me, and I have also seen the way the Egyptians are oppressing them. Therefore go, I am sending you to Pharaoh, that you may lead your people out of Egypt. But Moses asked God, who am I that I should go to Pharaoh, and that I should bring the Israelites out of Egypt? And he answered, I will certainly go with you, and this will be the sign to you that I am the one who sent you. When you bring the people out of Egypt, you will all worship God at this mountain. Then Moses asked God, if I go to the Israelites and say to them, the God of your ancestors sent me to you. Then they asked me, what is his name? What should I tell them? God replied to Moses, I am who I am. This is what you are to tell the Israelites. I am has sent you. God also asked Moses, say to the Israelites, the Lord God of your ancestors, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob has sent me to you. This is my name forever. This is how to be remembered in every generation. Go, assemble the elders of Israel, and say to them, the Lord of your God of your ancestors, the God of Abraham and Isaac and Jacob, has appeared to me and said, I have paid close attention to you and to what has been done to you in Egypt, and I have promised you that I will bring you up from the misery of Egypt into the land of the Canaanites, the Hittites, and the Amorites, and the Perizzites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites, and the land flowing with milk and honey. They will listen to what you say. Then you, along with the elders of Israel, must go to the king of Egypt and say to him, the Lord, the God of heavens, the Lord, the God of heavens, has met with us. Now, please let us go on a 3-day trip into the wilderness, that we may sacrifice to the Lord our God. However, I know that the king of Egypt will not allow you to go, even under the force of a strong hand. But when I stretch out my hand and I strike Egypt with all my miracles that I will perform in it, after that he will let you go. And I will give these people such favor with the Egyptians that when you go, you will not be empty-handed. Each woman will ask their neighbor, any woman staying in the house, for silver and gold and jewelry and clothing, and you will put them on your sons and daughters, so you will plunder the Egyptians. Exodus chapter 4. Moses answered, what if they won't believe me, and what if they will not obey me, but say the Lord did not appear to you? The Lord asked him, what is that in your hand? A staff. He replied, throw it on the ground. And he said, so Moses threw it on the ground, and it became a snake, and he ran from it. The Lord told Moses, stretch out your hand and grab it by the tail. So he stretched out his hand and caught it, and it became a staff in his hand, and he will take place. And he continued, that they will believe that the Lord of their God of their ancestors, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob has appeared to you. In addition, the Lord said to him, put your hand inside your cloak. So he put his hand inside his cloak, and when he took his hand out, he was diseased, resembling snow. Put your hand back back inside your pocket in the cloak. And he said, so he put his hand back inside the cloak, and when he took it out, it had again become like the rest of his skin. If they will not believe you, and they will not respond to the evidence of will not respond to the evidence of the first sign, they may believe the evidence of the second sign. And if they don't believe these two signs, or listen to what you say, take some water from the Nile, pour it on the dry ground, and the water you take from the Nile, and it will become blood on the ground. The Nile will become blood on the ground. But Moses replied to the Lord, please, Lord, I have never been eloquent in the past or recently, or since you have been speaking to your servant, because my mouth and my tongue are sluggish. The Lord said to him, Who placed a mouth on humans? Who makes a person mute or deaf, seeing or blind? Is it not I, the Lord? Now I will go, and I will help you speak, and I will teach you what to say. Moses said, please, Lord, send someone else. When the Lord's anger burned against Moses, and he said, Isn't Aaron the Levite your brother? I know that he can speak well, and also he is on his way to now meet you, and he will rejoice when he sees you. You will speak to him with him and tell him what to say. I will help you both, and both you and him to speak, and will teach you both what to do. He will speak to the people for you, and he will serve as a mouth for you, and he will serve as God to him. And you will take a staff in your hand that will perform the signs with. Then Moses went back to his father-in-law Jethro and said to him, please let me return to my relatives in Egypt and see if they are still living. Jethro said to Moses, go in peace. Now Midian, the Lord told Moses, return to Egypt, for all the men who wanted to kill you are now dead. So Moses took his wife and his sons and put them on a donkey and returned to the land of Egypt. And Moses took God's staff in his hand, and the Lord instructed Moses, when you go back to Egypt, to make sure that you do before Pharaoh and all the wonders that I have put within your power. But I will harden his heart so that you won't have to let the people go. And you will say to Pharaoh, this is what the Lord God says, Israel is my firstborn son, and I told you, let my son go so that he may worship me, but you refuse to let him go. So look, I am about to kill your firstborn son. On the trip on the overnight campsite, it happened that the Lord confronted him and intended to put him to death. So Zipporah took a flint cut off of her son's foreskin, threw it at Moses' feet, and said, you are a bridegroom of blood to me, so he let him alone. At that time, she said, you are a bridegroom of blood, referring to the circumcision. Now the Lord had said to Aaron, go and meet Moses in the wilderness, and he went and met him at the mountain, and mountain of God, and kissed him. And Moses told Aaron everything that the Lord had sent him to say, and all about the signs he had commanded him to do. Then Moses and Aaron went and assembled all the elders of Israel. Aaron repeated everything that Moses had said to Moses, and performed the signs before the people. The people believed, and when they heard that the Lord had paid attention to them, that they had seen their misery, and they knelt down, that he had seen their misery, they knelt low and worshipped. Exodus chapter 5. Later Moses and Aaron went in and said to Pharaoh, this is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says, let my people go so that they may hold a festival for me for me in the wilderness. But Pharaoh responded, who is the Lord that I should obey him by letting Israel go? I don't know the Lord. Besides, I will not let Israel go. They answered, the God of the Hebrews has met with us. Please let us go on a 3-day trip into the wilderness, so that we may sacrifice to the Lord our God, or else he may strike us with a plague or sword. The king of Egypt said to them, Moses and Aaron, why are you causing the people to neglect their work? Get to your labor. Pharaoh also said, look, the people of the land are so numerous, and you would stop them from their labor. That day Pharaoh commanded the overseers of the people as well as their foremen, don't continue to supply the people with straw for making bricks as before. They must go and gather straw for themselves, but require the same quota of bricks from them as they were making before. Do not reduce it, for they are slackers. That is why they are crying out, let us go make sacrifice to our God. Impose heavier work on the men, then they will be occupied with it and not pay attention to deceptive words. So the overseers and foremen of people went out and said to them, this is what Pharaoh says, I am not giving you straw. Go get straw for yourself. wherever you can find it. But there will be no reduction at all in your workload. So the people scattered throughout the land of Egypt to gather stubble for straw. The overseers instead finish your assigned work each day, just as you did when the straw was provided. Then the Israelite foremen, whom Pharaoh's slave drivers had set over the people, were beaten and asked, "Why haven't you finished making your prescribed number of bricks yesterday or today as you did before?" So the Israelite foreman went in and cried to help Pharaoh, "Why are you treating your servants this way? No straw has been given to us, or given to your servants, yet they say to us, 'Make bricks.' Look, your servants are being beaten, but it is your own people who are at fault." But he said, "You are slackers. That is why you are saying, 'Let us go sacrifice to the Lord.' Now get to work. No straw will be given to you, but you must produce the same quantity of bricks." The Israelite foremen saw that they were in trouble when they were told, "You cannot reduce your daily quota of bricks." When they left Pharaoh, they confronted Moses and Aaron, who stood waiting to meet them. "May the Lord take note of you and judge," they said to them, "because you have made us reek to Pharaoh and his officials, putting us a sword to their hand to kill us." So Moses went back to the Lord and asked the Lord, "Why have you caused trouble for this people, and why did you ever send me? Ever since I went in to Pharaoh to speak in your name, he has caused trouble to this people, and you haven't rescued your people at all." Exodus chapter 6. But the Lord replied to Moses, "Now you will see what I will do for Pharaoh, or to do to Pharaoh. Because of a strong hand he will let them go, and because of a strong hand he will drive them from his land." Then God spoke to Moses, telling him, "I am the Lord. I appeared to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob as God Almighty, but I was not known to them by my name, the Lord. I also established my covenant with them to give them the land of Canaan, the land they lived in as aliens. Furthermore, I have heard the groaning of the Israelites, whom the Egyptians are forced to work as slaves, and I have remembered my covenant. Therefore tell the Israelites, I am the Lord, and I will bring you out of the forced labor of the Egyptians and rescue you from the slavery to them. I will redeem you with an outstretched arm and great acts of judgment. I will take you as my people, and I will be your God. You will know that I am the Lord your God, who brought you from the forced labor of the Egyptians. I will bring you to the land that I swore to give Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and I will give it to you as possession. I am the Lord." Moses told this to the Israelites, but they did not listen to him because of their broken spirit and hard labor. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, "Go and tell Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, to let the Israelites go from his land." But Moses said in the Lord's presence, "If the Israelites will not listen to me, then how will Pharaoh listen to me, since I am a poor speaker?" Then the Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron and gave them both commands concerning both the Israelites and the Pharaoh, king of Egypt, to bring the Israelites out of the land of Egypt. These are the heads of the fathers of the family, the sons of Reuben, the son, the firstborn of Israel, Hanok and Palu and Hezron and Carmi. These are the clans of Reuben. The sons of Simeon, Jemuel, Jamin, Ohad, Jachin, Zohar, Shaul, and the son of a Canaanite woman. These are the clans of Simeon. These are the names of the sons of Levi, according to the family records: Gershon, Kohath, and Merari. Levi lived 137 years. The son of Geshon, Libni, Shimei, by their clans, the sons of Kohath, Amram, Izhar, Hebron, and Uzziel. Kohath lived 133 years, and the sons of Merari, Malhi, and Mushi. These are the clans of the Levites according to their family records. Amram married his father's sister Jochebed, when she bore him Aaron and Moses. Amram lived 137 years. The sons of Izhar, Kohar, Nepheg, and Sichtri. And the sons of Uzziel are Mishiel, The sons of Uziel, Mishael, Elzaphan, and Stihri. Aaron married Elishba, the daughter of Amminadab, a sister of Nahashon. She bore him Nadab and Abihu, Eleazar, and Ithamar, the sons of Korah. Ashar, Elkanah, and Abasaph. These are the clans of the Korahites. Aaron's son Eleazar married one of the daughters of Putiel. She bore him Phinehas. These are the heads of the Levite families by their clans. It was this Aaron and Moses who the Lord told, bring the Israelites out of the land of Egypt according to their military divisions. Moses and Aaron were the ones who spoke to Pharaoh the king of Egypt in order to bring the Israelites out of Egypt. On that day the Lord spoke to Moses in the land of Egypt, and he said to him, I am the Lord. Tell Pharaoh, king of Egypt, I am telling you. And Moses replied in the Lord's presence, since I am a poor speaker, how will Pharaoh listen to me?
Exodus chapter 7. The Lord answered Moses, see, I have made you like God to Pharaoh, and Aaron your brother will be your prophet. You must say whatever I command you. Then Aaron your brother must declare it to Pharaoh, so that he will let the Israelites go from his land. But I will harden Pharaoh's heart and multiply my signs and wonders in the land of Egypt. Pharaoh will not listen to you. But I will put my hand into Egypt and bring the military divisions of my people and the Israelites out of the land of Egypt. By great acts of judgment, the Egyptians will know that I am the Lord when I stretch out my hand against Egypt and bring them out of the Israelites from among them. So Moses and Aaron did this. They did just as the Lord commanded them. Moses was 80 years old, and Aaron 83, when they spoke to Pharaoh. The Lord said to Moses and Aaron, when Pharaoh tells you perform a miracle, tell Aaron to take your staff and throw it down before Pharaoh. It will become a serpent. So Moses and Aaron went into Pharaoh and did just as the Lord had commanded. Aaron threw down his staff before Pharaoh and his officials, and it became a serpent. But then Pharaoh called the wise men and sorcerers, the magicians of Egypt, and they also did the same thing by their occult practices. Each one threw down his staff, and it became a serpent. But Aaron's staff swallowed their staffs. However, Pharaoh's heart was hard, and he did not listen to them as the Lord had said. Then the Lord said to Moses, Pharaoh's heart is hard and refuses to let the people go. Go to Pharaoh in the morning when you see him walking out to the water. Stand ready to meet him by the bank of the Nile. Take in your hand the staff that turned into a snake. Tell him the Lord, the God of the Hebrews, has sent me to tell you, let my people go so that they may worship me in the wilderness. But so far you have not listened. This is what the Lord says. Here is how you will know that I am the Lord. Watch, I am about to strike the water in the Nile with the staff in my hand, and it will turn to blood. The fish in the Nile will die, and the river will stink, and the Egyptians will be unable to drink from it. So the Lord said to Moses, tell Aaron to take your staff and stretch out your hand over the waters of Egypt. Over the waters, over their rivers, canals, ponds, and over their water reservoirs, and they will become blood, and there will be blood throughout the land of Egypt, even in the wooden and stone containers. Moses and Aaron did just as the Lord commanded in the sight of Pharaoh and his officials. He raised the staff and struck the water in the Nile, and all the water in the Nile was turned to blood. The fish in the Nile had died, and the river smelled so bad the Egyptians could not drink water from it. There was blood throughout the land of Egypt, but the magicians of Egypt did the same thing by their occult practices. So the Pharaoh's heart was hard, and he would not listen to them as the Lord had said. Pharaoh turned around and went into his palace and didn't take even this to heart.
All the Egyptians dug around the Nile for water to drink because they could not drink the water from the river. 7 days passed after the Lord struck the Nile. Exodus 8. And the Lord said to Moses, "Go in to Pharaoh and tell him, this is what the Lord says, let my people go, so that they may worship me. But if you refuse to let them go, then I will plague all of your territory with frogs. The Nile will swarm with frogs, and they will come up and go into your palace, into your bedroom, and onto your bed, and into the houses, into your officials, into the house of your officials, and your people, and your ovens, and your kneading bowls, The frogs will come upon you, your people, and all your officials." The Lord then said to Moses, "Tell Aaron, stretch out your hand with your staff over the rivers, canals, and ponds, and cause the frogs to come up onto the land of Egypt." When Aaron stretched out his hand over the waters of Egypt, the frog came up and covered the land of Egypt. But the magicians did the same thing by their occult practices and brought the frogs up onto the land of Egypt. Pharaoh summoned Moses and Aaron and said, "Appeal to the Lord to remove the frogs from me and my people. Then I will let the people go, and they can sacrifice to the Lord." Moses said to Pharaoh, "You may have the honor of choosing. When should I appeal on behalf of you, your officials, and your people, that the frogs may be taken away from you and your house and remain only in the Nile?" "Tomorrow," he answered. Moses replied, "As you have said, so that you may know that there is no one like the Lord our God. The frogs will go away from you and your houses, your officials, and your peoples. The frogs will remain only in the Nile." After Moses and Aaron went out from Pharaoh, Moses cried out to the Lord for help concerning the frogs that he had brought against Pharaoh. The Lord did as Moses had said. The frogs in the house, the courtyards, and the fields had died. They piled them into countless heaps, but there was a terrible odor in the land. But when Pharaoh saw that there was a relief, he hardened his heart and would not listen to them as the Lord had said. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Tell Aaron, stretch out your staff and strike the dust in the land, and it will become gnats throughout the land of Egypt." And they did this. Aaron stretched out his hand with his staff and struck the dust of the land. Gnats were on people and animals. All the dust of the land became gnats throughout the land of Egypt. The magicians tried to produce gnats using their occult practices, but they could not. The gnats remained on people and animals. "This is the finger of God," the magician said to Pharaoh. But the Pharaoh's heart was hard, and he would not listen to them as the Lord had said. The Lord said to Moses, "Get up early in the morning and present yourself to Pharaoh. When you see him going out to the water, tell him, this is what the Lord says, let my people go so that they may worship me. But if you will not let my people go, then I will send swarms of flies against you, your officials, and your people of the house. The Egyptians' houses will swarm with flies, and so will the land of where they live. But on that day I will give special treatment to the land of Goshen, where my people are living. No flies will be there, and this way you will know that I am the Lord, and I am in the land, and I will make distinctions between my people and your people, and this sign will take place tomorrow." And the Lord did this. Thick swarms of flies went into the Pharaoh's palace and the officials' houses throughout Egypt, and the land was ruined because of the swarms of flies. Then Pharaoh summoned Moses and Aaron said, "Go to sacrifice to your God within the country." But Moses said it would not be right to do that, because what we will sacrifice to the Lord our God is detestable to the Egyptians. If we sacrifice what the Egyptians detest in front of them, won't they stone us? We must go a distance of 3 days into our wilderness and sacrifice to the Lord our God as he instructs us. Pharaoh responded, "I will let you go and sacrifice to the Lord your God in the wilderness, but don't go very far. Make an appeal for me as soon as I leave you." Moses said, "I will appeal to the Lord, and tomorrow the swarms of flies will depart from Pharaoh and his officials and his people. But Pharaoh must not act deceptively again by refusing to let the people go and sacrifice to the Lord." Then Moses left Pharaoh's presence and appealed to the Lord. The Lord did as Moses said. He removed the swarms of the flies from Pharaoh and his officials and his people, but not one was left. But Pharaoh hardened his heart this time also, did not let the people go. Exodus chapter 11. The Lord said to Moses, I will bring one more plague on Pharaoh and on Egypt. After that, he will let you go from here, and when he lets you go, he will drive you out of here. Now announce to the people that both men and women should ask their neighbors for silver and gold items. And the Lord gave the people favor with the Egyptians. In addition, Moses himself was very highly regarded in the land of Egypt by Pharaoh's officials and the people. So Moses said, this is what the Lord says, about midnight I will go throughout Egypt, and every firstborn male in the land of Egypt will die, from the firstborn of Pharaoh who sits on the throne of the firstborn to the firstborn of the servant girl who is at the grindstones, as well as every firstborn of the livestock. Then there will be a great cry of anguish throughout the land, through all the land of Egypt, and such as never was before or will ever be again, but against all the Israelites, whether people or animals, not even a dog will snarl, so that you may know that the Lord makes a distinction between Egypt and Israel. All these officials of yours will come down to get to me and bow before me, saying, get out, you and all the people who follow you. After that I will get out. And he went out from Pharaoh's presence fiercely angry. And the Lord said to Moses, Pharaoh will not listen to you, so that my wonders may be multiplied in the land of Egypt. Moses and Aaron did all these wonders before Pharaoh, but the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart, and he would not let the Israelites go out of his land. Chapter 12. The Lord said to Moses and Aaron in the land of Egypt, this month is at the beginning of months for you. It is in the first month of your year. Tell the whole community of Israel that on the 10th day of this month that they must each select an animal of the flock, and according to their fathers and their families, one animal per family. If the household is too small for a whole animal, that person and their neighbor nearest to the house are to select one based on the combined number of people. You should apportion the animal according to what each will eat. You must have an unblemished animal, a year-old male, and you will take it, either the sheep or the goats. You are to keep it until the 14th day of the month, and then the whole assembly of the community of Israel will slaughter the animals at twilight. They must take some of the blood and put it on the two doorposts of on the lintel of the houses where they eat them. They are to eat the meat that night. They should eat it roasted over the fire, along with unleavened bread that helps bread and bitter herbs. Do not eat any of it raw or cooked in the boiling water, but only roasted over the fire, as its head and well as its legs and its inner organs. You must not leave any of it until the morning, or any part of it left until morning. You must burn. Here's how you must eat it up. You must be dressed for travel, your sandals on your feet, and your sandals and your staff in your hand. You are to eat it in a hurry. It is the Lord's Passover. I will pass through the land of Egypt, and on that night I will strike every firstborn male in the land of Egypt, both people and animals, and I am the Lord. I will execute judgments against all of the gods of Egypt. The blood on the houses where you are staying will be a distinguishing mark for you. When I see the blood pass over you, no plague will be among you to destroy you when I strike the land of Egypt. This day must be a memorial for you, as you must celebrate it as the festival of the Lord. You are to celebrate it throughout your generations as a permanent statute. You are to eat unleavened bread for 7 days, and on the first day you must remove yeast from your house. Whoever eats it, what is leavened from the first day throughout the seventh day must be cut off from Israel. You are to hold a sacred assembly on the first day, and another sacred assembly on the seventh day. No work may be done on those except for preparing what people need to eat. You may only do that. You are to observe the festival of the unleavened bread, because on this very day I brought you military divisions out of the land of Egypt. You must observe on this day throughout your generations as a permanent statute. You are to eat unleavened bread in your first month, from the evening until the 14th day of the month, until the evening of the 21st day. Yeast must not be found in your house for 7 days. If anyone eats something unleavened, that a person, whether a resident alien or a native of the land, must be cut off from the community of Israel. Do not eat anything leavened. Eat unleavened bread in all your homes. Then Moses summoned all of the elders of Israel and said to them, go select an animal from the flock according to your family's slaughter of the Passover animal, and take a cluster of hyssop dip, and in the blood that is in the basin and the brush of the lintel and the 2 doorposts of the same blood of the basin. None of you may go out the door of his house until the morning, when the Lord passes through to strike Egypt, to see the blood and the lintel on the 2 doorposts. He will pass over the door and not let the destroyer enter your houses or strike you. Keep this command permanently as a statute with you and descendants when you enter the land that the Lord will give you as he promised. You are to observe this ceremony. When your children ask, what does this ceremony mean to you? You are to reply, as the Passover sacrifice to the Lord, and he passed over our houses and the Israelites in Egypt when he struck the Egyptians and spared our homes, so that the people knelt low and worshipped. Then the Israelites went down and did this, just as the Lord had commanded Moses and Aaron. Now at midnight the Lord struck every firstborn male in the land of Egypt, from the firstborn of Pharaoh who sat on the throne to the firstborn of the prisoner who was in the dungeon, and every firstborn of the livestock. During the night Pharaoh got up, and he along with all of his officials and all the Egyptians, and there was a loud wailing throughout Egypt, because there wasn't a house without someone dead. He summoned Moses and Aaron during that night. Get out immediately from among the people, both you and the Israelites. Go worship the Lord as you have said. Take even your flocks and your herds, and and as you asked, and in your herds as you asked, and leave, and also bless me. Now the Egyptians pressured the people into order to send them quickly out of the country, for they said, we're all going to die. So the people took their dough before it was leavened, and with their kneading bowls, and wrapped up their cloths on their shoulders. The Israelites acted on Moses' word and asked the Egyptians for silver and gold and items of clothing. And the Lord gave the people such favor with the Egyptians that they gave them what they requested. In this way they plundered the Egyptians. The Israelites traveled from Ramses to Succoth, about 600,000 able-bodied men on foot, besides their families. A mixed crowd also went up with them, and along with a huge number of livestock, both flocks and herds. The people baked the dough they had brought out of Egypt into the unleavened loaves. Since they had no yeast, they were driven out of Egypt. They could not delay and had not prepared provisions for themselves. The time that the Israelites lived in Egypt was 430 years. At the end of the 430 years, in the same day, all the Lord's military divisions went out from the land of Egypt. It was a night of the vigil in honor of the Lord, because this would bring them out of the land of Egypt. The same night in honor of the Lord, and a night of vigil, all of the Israelites throughout all their generations. The Lord said to Moses and Aaron, this is the statute of the Passover. No foreigner may eat it, but any slave a man has purchased may eat it after you have circumcised him. A temporary resident or hired worker may not eat the Passover. It is to be eaten in one house. You may not take any of the meat outside the house, or you may not break any of its bones. The whole community of Israel must celebrate it. If an alien resides among you and wants to observe the Lord's Passover, every male in his household must be circumcised, and then he may participate, and he will become like a native of the land, but no uncircumcised person may eat it. Same law will apply to those both native and alien who resides among you. Then all the Israelites did this, and they did just as the Lord commanded Moses and Aaron. On that same day, the Lord brought the Israelites out of the land of Egypt according to their military divisions. Wow. Exodus chapter 13. The Lord spoke to Moses, consecrate every firstborn male to me, the firstborn from every womb among the Israelites, both man and domestic animal, it is mine. Then Moses said to the people, remember this day when you came out of Egypt and out of the place of slavery, for the Lord brought you out of here by the strength of his hand. Nothing leavened may be eaten today in the month of Abib. You are going out, and when the Lord brings you into the land of the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites, which he swore to your ancestors that he would give you, a land flowing with milk and honey, you must carry out the ceremony of this month. For 7 days you must eat unleavened bread, and on the seventh day there is to be a festival of the Lord. Unleavened bread is to be eaten for those 7 days. Nothing leavened may be found among you, and no yeast may be found among you in all your territory. And on that day explain to your son, this is because of what the Lord did for me when I came out of Egypt. Let it serve as a sign on your hand and as a reminder on your forehead, that the Lord's instruction may be in your mouth, for the Lord brought you out of Egypt with a strong hand. To keep this stature as it is appointed from year to year, when the Lord brings you into the land of the Canaanites, as he swore to do to your ancestors and gives to you, you are to present to the Lord every firstborn male of the womb and all firstborn offsprings of all the livestock you own, so that your males that you own that are males will be the Lord's. You must redeem every firstborn of a donkey with a flock animal, but if you do not redeem it and break its neck, however, you must redeem every firstborn among your sons. In the future, when your son asks you, what does this mean? Say to him, by the strength of his hand, the Lord brought us out of Egypt, out of the place of slavery. And when Pharaoh stubbornly refused to let us go, the Lord killed every firstborn male in the land of Egypt, both the firstborn of humans and the firstborn of livestock. This is why I sacrifice to the Lord all the firstborns of the womb, so that they are males, and I redeem all the firstborn of my sons. So let it be a sign on your hand and a symbol on your forehead that the Lord brought us out of Egypt by the strength of his hand. When Pharaoh let the people go, and God did not lead them along the road to the land of the Philistines, even though it was nearby, for God said the people will change their minds and return to Egypt if they face a war. So he led the people around the Red Sea along the road of the wilderness, and the Israelites left the land of Egypt in the battle formation. Moses took the bones of Joseph with him, because Joseph had made the Israelites swear a solemn oath, saying, God will certainly come to your aid, and you must take my bones with you from this place. They set out from Succoth, camped at Etham, on the edge of the wilderness. The Lord went ahead of them in a pillar of cloud to lead them on their way during the day, and in a pillar of fire to give them light by night, so that they could travel day or night. The pillar of cloud by day and the pillar of fire by night never left its place in front of the people. Exodus chapter 14. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, tell the Israelites to turn back to encamp in the front of Pi-hahiroth, between Migdol and the sea. You must camp in front of Baal-zephon, facing it by the sea. Pharaoh will say of the Israelites, they are wandering around the land in confusion. Wilderness has boxed them in. I will harden Pharaoh's heart so that he will pursue them, and then I will receive glory by means of Pharaoh and his army. That the Egyptians will know that I am the Lord. So the Israelites did this. When the king of Egypt was told that the people had fled, Pharaoh and his officials changed their minds about the people and said, what have we done? We have released Israel from serving us. So we got his chariot ready and took his troops with him. He took 600 of the best chariots and all of the rest chariots of Egypt, with officers in each one. The Lord hardened the heart of Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, and he pursued the Israelites who were going out of defiantly. The Egyptians, all Pharaoh's horses and chariots, his horsemen and his army, chased them after caught up with them, and he camped by the sea beside Pi-hahiroth in front of Baal-zephon. As Pharaoh approached, the Israelites looked up, and there were the Egyptians coming after them. The Israelites were terrified and cried out to the Lord for help. They said to Moses, Is it because there are no graves in Egypt that you have taken us away to die in the wilderness? What have you done to us by bringing us out of Egypt? Isn't this what we told you in Egypt? Leave us alone so that we may serve the Egyptians. It would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than to die in the wilderness. But Moses said to the people, don't be afraid, stand firm and see the Lord's salvation that he will accomplish for you today. For the Egyptians you see today will never see again. The Lord will fight for you, and you must be quiet. The Lord said to Moses, why are you crying out to me? Tell me, Israelites can't break. As for you, lift up your staff, stretch out your hand over the sea, and divide it so that the Israelites can go through the sea on dry ground. For as for me, I'm going to harden the hearts of the Egyptians so that they will go in after them, and I will receive glory by means of Pharaoh and his army and his chariots and horsemen. The Egyptians will know that I am the Lord when I receive glory through Pharaoh and his chariots and his horsemen. And the angel of God who was going in front of the Israelite forces moved and went behind them, and the pillar of cloud moved from in front of them and stood behind them, and it came between the Egyptian and the Israelite forces. There was a cloud and darkness, and it lit up the night, and neither group came near the other all night long. Then Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and the drove the sea back, and the powerful east wind all that night turned to the sea into dry land, so that the waters were divided, and the Israel went through the sea on dry ground with the waters like a wall to them on their right and their left. The Egyptians set out and pursued all the Pharaoh's horses and his chariots and horsemen, and went into the sea after them during the morning watch. The Lord looked down at the Egyptians' forces, their pillars of fire and cloud, and threw the Egyptian forces into confusion. He caused their chariot wheels to swerve and make them drive with difficulty. Let's get away from Israel, the Egyptians said, because the Lord is fighting for them against Egypt. And the Lord said to Moses, stretch out your hand over the sea waters, and may come back on the Egyptians and their chariots and their horsemen. So Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and at daybreak the sea returned to its normal depth, while the Egyptians were escaped from it. The Lord threw them into the sea. The water came back and covered the chariots and horsemen, plus the entire army of Pharaoh that had gone after them into the sea. Not even one of them survived, but the Israelites had walked through the sea on dry ground with the waters like a wall to them on their right and their left. And that day the Lord saved Israel from the power of the Egyptians, and Israel saw the Egyptians dead on the seashore. When Israel saw great power that the Lord used against the Egyptians, these people feared the Lord and believed in him and his servant Moses. Exodus chapter 15. Then Moses and the Israelites sang the song to the Lord. They said, I will sing to the Lord, for he is highly exalted, and he has thrown the horse and its rider into the sea. The Lord is my strength and my song, has become my salvation. This is the Lord, my God. I will praise him, my Father's God, and I will exalt him. The Lord is a warrior, the Lord is his name. And he threw into Pharaoh's chariots and his armies into the sea, and the elite of his officers were drowned in the Red Sea. The floods covered them and sank them into the depths like a stone. Lord, your right hand is glorious in power, and Lord, your right hand has shattered the enemy. You overthrew your adversaries, and by your great majesty you unleashed your burning wrath. It is consumed up like stubble. The water heaped up by the blast of your nostrils, the currents stood like a dam, and the watery depths congealed in the heart of the sea. The enemy said, I will pursue you, I will overtake you, I will divide the spoil. My desire will be gratified by their expense, and I will draw my sword, my hand will destroy them. But you blew your breath, and the sea covered them, and they sank like lead in the mighty waters. Lord, who is like you among the gods? Who is like you? Glorious in holiness, reverent with praises, performing wonders. You stretched out your right hand, and the earth swallowed them. With your faithful love you will lead people you have redeemed, and you will guide them by your holy dwelling and by your strength. When people hear, they will shudder. Anguish will seize the inhabitants of Philistia, and the chiefs of Edom will be terrified. Trembling will seize the leaders of Moab, and all the inhibitions of Canaan will panic. Terror and dread will fall on them. They will be as still as a stone because of your powerful arm, until your people pass by, Lord, until the people whom you purchased pass by. You will bring them in and plant them on the mountain of your possession. Lord, you have prepared the place for your dwelling. Lord, your hand has established a sanctuary. The Lord will reign forever and ever. When Pharaoh's horses with his chariots and horsemen went into the sea, the Lord brought the water of the sea back over them, but the Israelites walked through the sea on dry ground. But the prophetess Miriam and Aaron's sister took a tambourine to their hand, and all the women came out following with tambourines and dancing. Miriam sang to them, sing to the Lord, for he is highly exhausted, and he has thrown the horse and its rider into the sea. Then Moses led Israel on from the Red Sea, and they went out to the wilderness of Shur. They journeyed for 3 days. They journeyed for 3 days in the wilderness without finding water. They came to Marah, but they could not drink the water at Marah because it was bitter. That is why it is named Marah. The people grumbled to Moses, "What are we going to drink?" So he cried out to the Lord, and the Lord showed him a tree. And when he threw it into the water, the water became drinkable. The Lord made a statute and ordinance for them at Marah, and he tested them. And he tested them there, and he said, "If you will carefully obey the Lord your God and do what is right in his sight, and pay attention to his commandments and keep all of his statutes, I will not inflict any illness on you that I have inflicted on the Egyptians, for I am the Lord who heals you." Then they came to Elim, where there were 12 springs and 70 date palms, and they camped there by the water. Exodus chapter 16. The entire Israelite community departed from Elim and came to the wilderness of Sin, which is between Elim and Sinai, on the 15th day of the second month. And after they had left the land of Egypt, the entire Israelite community grumbled against Moses and Aaron in the wilderness. The Israelites said to them, "If only we had died by the Lord's hand in the land of Egypt, when we sat by the pots of the meat and ate all the bread we wanted. Instead, you brought us into this wilderness, and this whole assembly die of hunger." Then the Lord said to Moses, "I am going to rain bread from the heaven for you. The people are going to people are to go out each day and gather enough for that day. This way I will test them to see whether or not they will follow my instructions. On the 6th day they will prepare what they bring in, and it will be twice as much as they gathered on the other days." So Moses and Aaron went to all the Israelites this evening, and you know that it was the Lord who brought. This evening you will know that it was the Lord that brought you out of the land of Egypt, and in the morning you will see that the Lord's glory, because he has heard your complaints about him. For who are we that you are to complain about us? Moses continued, "That the Lord will give you meat, and this evening all the bread you want in the morning, for he has heard the complaints of what you are raising against him. Who are we? Your complaints are not against us, but against the Lord's." And Moses told Aaron, "Say to the entire Israelite community, 'Come before the Lord, for he has heard your complaints.'" And as Aaron was speaking to the entire Israelite community, they turned towards the wilderness, and there in a cloud there was the Lord's glory appeared. The Lord spoke to Moses, "I have heard the complaints of the Israelites, and tell them at twilight you will eat meat, and in the morning you will break bread until you are full. Then you will know that I am the Lord your God." And as the evening came and covered the camp, in the morning there was a layer of dew all around the camp, and when the layer of dew evaporated, there was fine flakes on the desert surface, and as fine as frost on the ground. When the Israelites saw it, they asked one another, "What is it?" because they don't know what it was. Moses told them, "It is the bread that the Lord has given you to eat. This is what the Lord has commanded. Gather as much as each person needs to eat. You make two quarts per individual, according to the number of people each of you has in his tent." So the Israelites did this. Someone gathered a lot, some a little. When they measured it by quarts, the person who gathered had a lot, no surplus, and the person who gathered a little had no shortage. Each gathered as much as they needed to eat. Moses said to them, "No one is to let any of it remain until the morning." But they didn't listen to Moses, and some of the people left part until the morning, and it bred worms and stank, and therefore Moses was angry with them. They gathered it every morning. Each gathered as much as they needed to eat, but when the sun grew hot, it melted. And on the 6th day, they gathered twice as much food, and 4 quarts apiece. And all the leaders of the community came and reported it to Moses. And he told them, "This is what the Lord says. Tomorrow is the day of complete rest, holy Sabbath. On this day, holy Sabbath to the Lord. Bake what you want to bake, and boil what you want to boil, and set aside everything left over and keep it till the morning." So they set it aside until the morning, as Moses commanded, and it didn't stink or have maggots in it. "Eat it today," Moses said, "because it is a Sabbath to the Lord today, and won't fix any in the field. For 6 days we'll gather it, but on the 7th day Sabbath there will be none." Yet on the 7th day some of the people went out to gather, but they did not find any. Then the Lord said to Moses, "How long will you refuse to keep my commandments and my instructions? Understand that the Lord has given you the Sabbath. Therefore, on the 6th day, he will give you 2 days' worth of bread. Each of you stay where you are. No one is to leave his place on the 7th day." So the people rested on the 7th day. The house of Israel named the substance manna, resembled coriander seeds, coriander seeds, was white and tasted like wafers, made it like honey. Moses said, "This is what the Lord has commanded: 2 quarts of it to be preserved throughout the generations, so that you may see the bread I was fed you in the wilderness when I brought you out of the land of Egypt." Moses told Aaron, "Take a container and put 2 quarts of manna in it, and then placed it there before the Lord to be preserved throughout your generations, as the Lord commanded Moses." And Aaron placed it before the testimony to be preserved. The Israelite ate manna for 40 years until they came into an inhabited land. They ate manna until they reached the border of the land of Canaan. They used a measure called an omer, which held 2 quarts. Exodus chapter 17. The entire Israelite community left the wilderness of Sin, moving from one place to the next according to the Lord's command. They camped at Rephidim, but there was no water for the people to drink, so the people complained to Moses, "Give us water to drink." "Why are you complaining to me?" Moses replied to them. "Why are you testing the Lord?" But the people thirsted there for water and grumbled against Moses. They said, "Why did you ever bring us from Egypt to kill us with our children and our livestock with thirst?" Then Moses cried out to the Lord, "What should I do to these people? In a little while they're going to stone me." And the Lord answered Moses, "Go ahead of the people and take some of the elders of Israel with you. Take your staff you struck the Nile with your hand, and go. I am going to stand there in front of you at the rock of Horeb, and when you hit the rock, water will come from it and out of it, and the people will drink." And Moses did this in sight of the elders of Israel. He named the place Massah and Meribah because the Israelites complained, and because they tested the Lord, saying, "Is the Lord among us or not?" At Rephidim, Amalek came and fought against Israel. Moses said to Joshua, "Select some men for us and go fight against Amalek. Tomorrow I will stand on the hilltop with God's staff in my hand." Joshua did as Moses had told him and fought against Amalek. While Moses, Aaron, and Hur went up to the top of the hill. While Moses held up his hand, Israel prevailed. Whenever he put his hand down, Amalek prevailed. When Moses' hand grew very weary, he took a stone and put it under him, and he sat on it. And then Aaron and Hur supported his hands, one on one side and one on the other, so that his hands remained steady until the sun went down. So Josh defeated Amalek and his army with the sword. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Write this down on a scroll reminder and recite it to Joshua. I will completely blot out the memory of Amalek under heaven." And Moses built an altar and named it this, "The Lord is my banner." He said, "Indeed, my hand is lifted up towards the Lord's throne. The Lord will be at war." Amalek from generation to generation. Acts 18, Moses' father-in-law Jethro, the priest of Midian, heard about everything that God had done for Moses and God's people of Israel when the Lord brought Israel out of Egypt. Now Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, had taken Zipporah, Moses' wife, after he had sent her back, along with those 2 sons of whom named Gershom, because Moses had said, "I have been a resident alien in the foreign land," in parentheses, and the other Eliezer, because he had said, "The God of father was my helper and rescued me from Pharaoh's sword," end of parentheses. Moses' father-in-law Jethro, along with Moses' wife and sons, came to him in the wilderness where he was camped at the mountain of God, and he sent word from Moses, "I, your father-in-law Jethro, am coming to you with your wife and your 2 sons." So Moses went down to meet his father-in-law and bowed down and kissed him, and they asked each other how they had been, and went into the tent. Moses recounted to his father-in-law all that the Lord had done to Pharaoh and the Egyptians for Israel's sake, and the hardships that confronted them on the way, and how the Lord rescued them. Jethro rejoiced over all the good things that the Lord had done for Israel, and as he rescued them from the power of the Egyptians. "Blessed is the Lord," the Jethro explained, "who rescued you from the power of Egypt and the power of Pharaoh, and he rescued the people from under the power of Egypt. And now I know that the Lord is greater than all gods, because he did wonders when the Egyptians acted arrogantly against Israel." Then Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, brought a burnt offering and sacrifices to God, and Aaron came with all of the elders of Israel to eat a meal with Moses' father-in-law in God's presence. Then the next day, Moses sat down to judge the people, and they stood around Moses, and from morning until evening. When Moses' father-in-law saw everything he was doing for them, he asked, What is this you're doing for the people? Why are you alone sitting as a judge? While all the people are standing around you from morning until evening?" Moses replied to his father-in-law, "Because the people come to me and inquire of God whenever they have to dispute. It comes to me, and I make a decision between one man and another, and I teach them God's statutes and laws. What you're doing is not good." Moses' father-in-law said to him, "You will certainly wear out both yourself and these people who are with you, because your task is too heavy on you, and you cannot do it alone. Now listen to me. I will give you advice, and God be with you, and the one to represent the people before God and bring their cases to him, instruct them about the statutes and laws, and teach them about the way to live and what they must do. But you should select from all the people able men, God-fearing, trustworthy, and hating dishonest and profit. Place them over the peoples as commanders of thousands, of hundreds, of fifties, and tens. They should judge the people at all times. Then they can bring you every major case and judge in every minor case themselves. In this way they will be lighten your load, and it will bear with you. If you do this, God so directs you, you will be able to endure, and also all of these people will be able to go home satisfied." Moses listened to his father-in-law, did everything he said. So Moses chose able men from all of Israel, made them leaders over the people, of commanders of thousands, of fifties, of tens. They judged the people with all times. They would bring the hard cases to Moses, but they would judge every minor case themselves. Moses and his father-in-law, he journeyed into his own land.
Exodus chapter 19. In the 3rd month from the very day the Israelites left the land of Egypt, they came to the Sinai wilderness. They traveled from Rephidim and came to the Sinai wilderness and camped in the wilderness. Israel camped there in front of the mountain. Moses went up to the mountain to God, and the Lord called him from the mountain. "This is what you must say to the house of Jacob and explain to the Israelites. You have seen what I did to the Egyptians, and how I carried you on eagle's wings and brought to you myself. Now, if you will carefully listen to me and keep my covenant, you will be my own possession out of all the peoples, although this earth is mine, and you will be my kingdom of my priests and my holy nation. These are the words that you are to say to the Israelites." After Moses came and summoned all the elders and the peoples, set before them and all the words that the Lord had commanded him, then the people responded, "Together we will do all that the Lord had spoken." So Moses brought the people's words back to the Lord. The Lord said to Moses, "I am going to come to you in a dense cloud, so that people will hear when I speak with you, will always believe you." Moses reported to the people's words to the Lord, and the Lord told Moses, "Go to the people and consecrate them today and tomorrow, and they will wash their clothes and be prepared to the 3rd day. On the 3rd day the Lord will come down on the Mount Sinai and put together and in sight of all people put boundaries in place, and all around the mountains will say, 'Be careful that you don't go up to the mountain or touch its base. Anyone who touches the mountain must be put to death. No hand may touch him. Instead, he will be stoned and shot with arrows and not live, whether animal or human. Whether the ram's horn sound a long blast, they may go up to the mountain." Then Moses came down from the mountain to the people and consecrated them and washed their clothes. He said to the people, "Be prepared by the 3rd day. Do not have sexual relations with women." On the 3rd day, when morning came, and there was thunder and lightning and a thick cloud on the mountain with a very loud blast, and the ram's horn, and all the people in the camp shuddered. Then Moses brought the people out from the camp to meet God, and they stood at the foot of the mountain. And Mount Sinai was completely enveloped in smoke, because the Lord had came down on its fire with its smoke went up. Its smoke went up like the smoke of a furnace, and the whole mountain violently shook. And as the sound of the ram's horn blew louder and louder, Moses spoke to God, and God answered him in the thunder. And the Lord came down on Mount Sinai on top of the mountain, and then the Lord summoned Moses all the way to the top of the mountain, and he went up. And the Lord directed Moses, "Go down and warn the people not to break through to see the Lord, otherwise many of them will die. Even the priests who come near the Lord must consecrate themselves, or the Lord will break out in anger against them." Moses responded to the Lord, the people cannot come up here, Mount Sinai, since they warned us. Put a boundary around the mountain and consecrate it." And the Lord replied to him, "Go down and come back with Aaron, but the priests and the people must not break through to come up and see the Lord, or he will break out in anger against them." So Moses went down to the people and told them. Exodus chapter 20.
Then God spoke all these words: I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the place of slavery. Do not have any other gods besides me. Do not make an idol for yourself, whether it is in the shape of anything in the heavens above on earth, above or on the earth below, or in the waters under the earth. Do not bow and worship to them, and do not serve them, for I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, bringing the consequences of the father's iniquities on the children to the third and the fourth generations of those who hate me, but the showing of a faithful love to thousands of generations who love me and keep my commandments. Do not misuse the name of the Lord your God, because the Lord will not leave anyone unpunished who misuses his name. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. You are to labor 6 work days, or 6 days to do all your work, but then the seventh day is the Sabbath, the Lord your God. You must not do any hard work. You must not do any hard work. You, your son or your daughter, or male or female servant, livestock, or resident alien who is within the city gates. For the Lord made the heavens and the earth, the sea, and everything in them in 6 days, and he rested on the seventh day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath and declared it holy. Honor your father and your mother, so that they may have a long life in the land of the Lord the God giving to you. Do not murder, do not commit adultery, do not steal, do not give false testimony to your neighbor against your neighbor. Do not covet your neighbor's house. Do not covet your neighbor's wife, or his male or female servant, or his ox, or his donkey, or anything that belongs to you or your neighbor. All people witnessed the thunder and lightning and the sound of the ram's horn, and the mountain sounded like smoke, surrounded by smoke. When people saw it, they trembled and stood at a distance. You speak to us, and we will listen, they said to Moses, but don't let God speak to us, or we will die. Moses responded to the people, don't be afraid, for God has come to test you, so that you will fear him and will not sin. And the people remained standing at a distance. Moses approached the total darkness where God was. Then the Lord told Moses, this is what you are to say to the Israelites. You have seen that I have spoken to you from heaven. Do not make gods of silver or rival me. Do not make gods of gold or for yourselves. Make an earthen altar for me, and sacrifice on it your burnt offerings and fellowship offerings, your flocks and your herds. I will come to you and bless you in every place where I am where I cause my name to be remembered. Make a stone altar for me. Do not build it out of cut stones. If you use your chisel on it, you will defile it. Do not go into my altar steps, so that your nakedness is not exposed on it.